Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. The live studios are here again in GK1, Delhi, 110048. We're in Hemkund Colony at the apartment of Anantarupa Prabhu and Jamuna Pavani Devidasi. And they're our hosts, and they're taking very good care of us. Today we had a visit with our dear friends from the temple here in Delhi, main temple. And we've reached a very, very important chapter in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Kapila Muni is beginning to instruct Devahuti. And interestingly enough, the first chapter is entitled Pure Devotional Service. And there's a reason for this. And that is that what he's launching into now is the explanation of Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya means to count. And the Sankhya philosophy means to analyze the different components of material nature to understand how they're working, where they came from, etc. And by beginning the teachings with a chapter on what pure devotional service is and why, he is putting the Sankhya philosophy into the proper perspective. There's a whole bunch of people in this world now who follow an imitation Kapila, who teaches a Sankhya philosophy that results in atheistic conceptions, impersonal conceptions, and does not acknowledge the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Being or Supreme Sentient Being to be the source, the origin of everything. So therefore, this is an extremely important chapter. Before we start to read it, again, we'll read Sanatana Goswami's glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, in which he reminds us that every syllable of this supreme transcendental literature, the cream of the Shrutis, of the original Vedas, flows with the flood of prema, every syllable, including the Sankhya philosophy. And this chapter, Pure Devotional Service, establishes this as an eternal fact. So Sanatana Goswami, in glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam, he has this to say. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kali Dvandurita Ditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Savasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Mad Mahadana Manistadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu, saduta dayin, atini chochata kada, hanamun chagadachin mam, premna rit kantayos Buddha. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please, never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So bearing in mind what we said just before we chanted the prayers of Sanatana Goswami, we're going to continue in the first chapter, really, of the beginning of the instructions of Kapila Dev to his mother, Devahuti. And the last verse we read was the very famous verse, Satam Prasanga Mama Virya Samvido, that the transcendental hearing of these glories can only be done in the presence of pure devotees. And now we're going to continue. Third canto, 25th chapter, Pure Devotional Service, beginning with text 26. Kapila Deva is speaking to Devahuti. Thus, consciously engaged in devotional service, in the association of devotees, a person gains distaste for sense gratification, both in this world and in the next, by constantly thinking about the activities of the Lord. This process of Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of mystic power. When one is actually situated on that path of devotional service, he is able to control the mind. Purport. In all scriptures, people are encouraged to act in a pious way so that they can enjoy sense gratification, not only in this life, but also in the next. For example, one is promised promotion to the heavenly kingdom of higher planets by pious, fruitive activities. But a devotee in the association of devotees prefers to contemplate the activities of the Lord. 3:25-26. Our hostess with the mostess just came in to join us. Thank you. Yamuna Pavani, Hare Krishna. For example, if one is promised promotion to the heavenly kingdom of higher planets by pious fruitive activities, but a devotee in the association of devotees prefers to contemplate the activities of the Lord, how He has created this universe, how He is maintaining it, how the creation dissolves, and how in the spiritual kingdom the Lord's pastimes are going on. There are full literatures describing these activities of the Lord, especially Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Samhita, and Srimad-Bhagavatam. The sincere devotee who associates with devotees gets the opportunity to hear and contemplate this subject of the pastimes of the Lord. And the result is that he feels distaste for so-called happiness in this or in that world, in heaven or on other planets. The devotees are simply interested in being transferred to the personal association of the Lord. They have no more attraction for temporary so-called happiness. This is the position of one who is yoga yukta. One who is fixed in mystic power is not disturbed by the allurement of this world or that world. He is interested in the matters of spiritual understanding or the spiritual situation. This sublime situation is very easily attained by the easiest process, Bhakti Yoga. Rijubir Yoga Margahe. A very suitable word used here is Rijubi, or very easy. There are different processes of Yoga Marg, attaining yoga perfection. But this process, devotional service to the Lord, is the easiest. Not only is it the easiest process, but the result is sublime. Everyone, therefore, should take to this process of Krishna consciousness and reach the highest perfection of life. Text 27. Thus, by not engaging in the service of the modes of material nature, but by developing Krishna consciousness, knowledge and renunciation, and by practicing yoga, in which the mind is always fixed in devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one achieves my association in this very life. For I am the Supreme Personality, the Absolute Truth. Purport. When one engages in devotional service to the Lord, in the 9 different kinds of Bhakti Yoga, as enunciated in authoritative scriptures, such as hearing, Shravanam, chanting, Kirtanam, remembering, offering worship, praying, and offering personal service, either in one of them, or 2, or 3, or all of them, he naturally has no opportunity to engage in the service of the 3 modes of material nature. Unless one has good engagements in spiritual service, it is not possible to get out of the attachment to material service. Those who are not devotees, therefore, are interested in so-called humanitarian or philanthropic work, such as opening a hospital or charitable institution. These are undoubtedly good works in the sense that they are pious activities, and the result is that the performer may get some opportunities for sense gratification, either in this life or in the next. Devotional service, however, is beyond the boundary of sense gratification. It is completely spiritual activity. When one engages in the spiritual activities of devotional service, naturally, he does not get any opportunity to engage in sense gratificatory activities. Krishna conscious activities are performed not blindly, but with perfect understanding of knowledge and renunciation. This kind of yoga practice, in which the mind is always fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotion, results in liberation in this very life. The person who performs such acts gets in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya therefore approved the process of hearing from realized devotees about the pastimes of the Lord. It does not matter to what category of this world the audience belongs. If one meekly and submissively hears about the activities of the Lord from a realized soul, he will be able to conquer the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is unconquerable by any other process. Hearing or associating with devotees is the most important function for self-realization. I'll read that again. That's pretty important, for me also, especially. Hearing or associating with devotees is the most important function for self-realization. Text 28. On hearing this statement of the Lord, Devahuti inquired, what kind of devotional service is worth developing and practicing to help me easily and immediately attain the service of your lotus feet? Purport. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that no one is barred from rendering service to the Lord, whether one is a woman or a laborer or a merchant if he engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord, he is promoted to the highest perfectional state and goes back home, back to Godhead. The devotional service most suitable for different types of devotees is determined and fixed by the mercy of the spiritual master. The mystic yoga system, as you have explained, aims at the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is meant for completely ending material existence. Please let me know the nature of that yoga system. How many ways are there by which one can understand in truth that sublime yoga? Purport. There are different kinds of mystic yoga systems aiming for different phases of the Absolute Truth. The Jnana Yoga system aims at the impersonal Brahman effulgence, and the Hatha Yoga system aims at the localized, personal aspect, the Paramatma feature of the Absolute Truth. Whereas Bhakti Yoga, or devotional service, which is executed in 9 different ways, headed by hearing and chanting, aims at complete realization of the Supreme Lord. There are different methods of self-realization of the Supreme Lord. There are different methods of self-realization. But here Devahuti especially refers to the Bhakti Yoga system, which has already been primarily explained by the Lord. The different parts of the Bhakti Yoga system are hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshipping the Lord in the temple, accepting service to Him, carrying out His orders, making friendship with Him, and ultimately surrendering everything for the service of the Lord. The word nirvanatman is very significant in this verse. Unless one accepts the process of devotional service, one cannot end the continuation of material existence. As far as jnanis are concerned, they are interested in jnana yoga. But even if one elevates oneself after a great performance of austerity to the Brahman effulgence, there is a chance of falling down again to the material world. Therefore, jnana yoga does not actually end material existence. Similarly, regarding the Hatha Yoga system, which aims at the localized aspect of the Lord, Paramatma, it has been experienced that many yogis, such as Vishwamrita, fall down. But Bhakti yogis, once approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead, never come back to this material world, as it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Yad gatva nanivartante. Upon going, one never comes back. Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti. After giving up this body, he never comes back again to accept the material body. Nirvana does not finish the existence of the soul. The soul is ever existing. Therefore, nirvana means to end one's material existence, and to end material existence means to go back home, back to Godhead. Sometimes it is asked how the living entity falls down from the spiritual world to the material world. Here is the answer. Unless one is elevated to the Vaikuntha planets, directly in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is prone to fall down, either from the impersonal Brahman realization or from the ecstatic trance of meditation. Another word in this verse, Bhagavad Banaha, is very significant. Banaha means arrow. The Bhakti Yoga system is just like an arrow aiming up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhakti Yoga system never urges one towards the impersonal Brahman effulgence or to the point of Paramatma realization. This bana, or arrow, is so sharp and swift that it goes directly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, penetrating the regions of impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma. Text 30. My dear son Kapila, after all, I am a woman. It is very difficult for me to understand the absolute truth, because my intelligence is not very great. But if you will kindly explain it to me, even though I am not very intelligent, I can understand it and thereby feel transcendental happiness. Purport. Knowledge of the Absolute Truth is not very easily understood by ordinary, less intelligent men. But if the spiritual master is kind enough to the disciple, however unintelligent the disciple may be, then by the divine grace of the spiritual master, everything is revealed. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur therefore says, Yasya prasadad, by the mercy of the spiritual master, the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavat Prasada is revealed. Devahuti requested her great son to be merciful towards her because she was a less intelligent woman and also his mother. By the grace of Kapila Dev, it was quite possible for her to understand the absolute truth, even though the subject matter is very difficult for ordinary persons, especially women. Text 31. Sri Maitreya said, after hearing the statement of his mother, Kapila could understand her purpose, and he became compassionate towards her because of being born of her body. He described the Sankhya system of philosophy, which is a combination of devotional service and mystic realization as received by disciplic succession. Text 32. Lord Kapila said, the senses are symbolic representations of the demigods, and their natural inclination is to work under the direction of the Vedic injunctions. As the senses are representatives of the demigods, so the mind is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The mind's natural duty is to serve. When that service spirit is engaged in devotional service to the Personality of Godhead without any motive, that is by far better even than salvation. Purport. The senses of the living entity are always engaged in some occupation, either in activities prescribed in the injunctions of the Vedas or in material activities. The natural inclination of the senses is to work for something, and the mind is the center of the senses. The mind is actually the leader of the senses. Therefore it is called sattva. Similarly, the leader of all the demigods who are engaged in the activities of this material world, the sun god, moon god, Indra, and others, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in the Vedic literature, it is stated in the Vedic literature that the demigods are different limbs of the universal body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Our senses are also controlled by different demigods. Our senses are representations of various demigods, and the mind is the representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The senses, led by the mind, act under the influence of the demigods. When the service is ultimately aimed at the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the senses are in their natural position. The Lord is called Rishikesha, for he is actually the proprietor and ultimate master of the senses. The senses in the mind are naturally inclined to work, but when they are materially contaminated, they work for some material benefit or for the service of the demigods, although actually they are meant to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The senses are called Rishikesh, Rishika, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Rishikesha. Indirectly, all the senses are naturally inclined to serve the Supreme Lord. That is called bhakti. Kapila Dev said that when the senses, without desire for material profit or other selfish motives, are engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in devotional service. That spirit of service is far better than siddhi salvation. Bhakti, the inclination to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is in a transcendental position far better than mukti or liberation. Thus, bhakti is the stage after liberation. Unless one is liberated, one cannot engage the senses in the service of the Lord. When the senses are engaged either in material activities for sense gratification, or in the activities of the Vedic injunctions, there is some motive. But when the same senses are engaged in the service of the Lord and there is no motive, that is called animita, and it is the natural inclination of the mind. The conclusion is that when the mind, without being deviated either by Vedic injunctions or by material activities, is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness or devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is far better than the most aspired for liberation from material entanglement. Text 33. Bhakti Yoga, devotional service, dissolves the subtle body of a living entity without separate effort. Just as fire in the stomach digests all that we eat. Purport. Bhakti is in a far higher position than mukti because the person's endeavor to get liberation from material engagement is automatically served in devotional service. The example is given here that the fire in the stomach can digest whatever we eat. If the digestive power is sufficient, then whatever we eat will be digested by the fire of the stomach. Similarly, a devotee does not have to try separately to attain liberation. That very service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the process of his liberation, because to engage oneself in the service of the Lord is to liberate oneself from material entanglement. Sri Bilbamangala Thakur explained this position very nicely. He said, "If I have unflinching devotion unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, then mukti, or liberation, serves me as my maidservant. Mukti, the maidservant, is always ready to do whatever I ask." For a devotee, liberation is no problem at all. Liberation takes place without separate endeavor. Bhakti, therefore, is far better than mukti, or the impersonalist position. The impersonalists undergo severe penances and austerities to attain mukti, but the bhakta, simply by engaging himself in the bhakti process, especially in chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, immediately develops control over the tongue by engaging it in chanting and in accepting the remnants of foodstuff offered to the Personality of Godhead. As soon as the tongue is controlled, naturally, all other senses are controlled, automatically. Sense control is the perfection of the yogic principle. And one's liberation begins immediately as soon as he engages himself in the service of the Lord. It is confirmed by Kapila Dev that bhakti, or devotional service, is gariyasi, more glorious than siddhi, liberation. Text 34. A pure devotee who is attached to the activities of devotional service and who always engages in the service of my lotus feet never desires to become one with me. Such a devotee who is unflinchingly engaged always glorifies my pastimes and activities. Purport. There are 5 kinds of liberation stated in the scriptures. One is to become one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or to forsake one's individuality and merge into the Supreme Spirit. This is called ekatmatam. A devotee never accepts this kind of liberation. The other 4 liberations are to be promoted to the same planet of God, Vaikuntha, to associate personally with the Supreme Lord, to achieve the same opulence as the Lord, and to attain the same bodily features as the Supreme Lord. A pure devotee, as will be explained by Kapila Muni, does not aspire for any of the 5 liberations. He especially despises as hellish the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati, a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, said, Kaivalyam narakaryate. The happiness of becoming one with the Supreme Lord, which is aspired for by the Mayavadis, is considered hellish. That oneness is not for pure devotees. There are many so-called devotees who think that in the conditioned state we may worship the personality of Godhead, but that ultimately there is no personality. They say that since the Absolute Truth is impersonal, one can imagine a personal form of the impersonal Absolute Truth for the time being. But as soon as one becomes liberated, the worship stops. Thus, that is the theory put forward by the Mayavad philosophy. Actually, the impersonalists do not merge into the existence of the Supreme Person, but into his personal bodily luster, which is called the Brahmajyoti. Although that Brahmajyoti is not different from his personal body, that sort of oneness, merging into the bodily luster of the personality of Godhead, is not accepted by a pure devotee, because the devotees engage in greater pleasure than the so-called pleasure of merging into his existence. The greatest pleasure is to serve the Lord. Devotees are always thinking how to serve him. They are always designing ways and means to serve the Supreme Lord, even in the midst of the great obstacles of material existence. The Mayavadis accept the description the Mayavadis accept the description of the pastimes of the Lord as stories, but actually they're not stories. They are historical facts. Pure devotees accept the narrations of the pastimes of the Lord not as stories, but as absolute truth. The words Mama Parushani are significant. Devotees are very much attached to glorifying the activities of the Lord, whereas the Mayavadis cannot even think of these activities. According to them, the Absolute Truth is impersonal. Without personal existence, how can there be activity? The impersonalists take the activities mentioned in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and other Vedic literatures as fictitious stories, and therefore they interpret them most mischievously. They have no idea of the personality of Godhead. They unnecessarily poke their noses into the scripture and interpret it in a deceptive way in order to mislead the innocent public. The activities of Mayavad philosophy are very dangerous to the public, and therefore Lord Chaitanya wanted us never to hear from any Mayavadi about any scripture. They will spoil the entire process of devotional service to attain the highest perfection, or will be able to do so only after a very long time. I'll read this again. Lord Chaitanya warned us never to hear from any Mayavadi about any scripture. they will spoil the entire process, and the person hearing them will never be able to come to the path of devotional service to attain the highest perfection, or will be able to do so only after a very long time. It is clearly stated by Kapila Muni that bhakti activities or activities in devotional service are transcendental to mukti. This is called Panchama Purushartha. Generally, people engage in the activities of religion, economic development, and sense gratification. But ultimately, they work with the idea that they are going to become one with the Supreme Lord, mukti. But bhakti is transcendental to all these activities. The Srimad-Bhagavatam therefore begins by stating that all kinds of pretentious religiosity is completely eradicated from the Bhagavatam. Ritualistic activities for economic development and sense gratification, and after frustration and sense gratification, the desire to become one with the Supreme Lord, are all completely rejected in the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is especially meant for the pure devotees who always engage in Krishna consciousness, in the activities of the Lord, and always glorify these transcendental activities. Pure devotees worship the transcendental activities of the Lord in Vrindavan, Dwarka, and Mathura, and they are narrated as they are narrated in the Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas. The Mayavadi philosophers completely reject them as stories relishable only for devotees. The Mayavadi philosophers completely reject them as stories, but actually they are great and worshipable subject matters, and thus are relishable only for devotees. That is the difference between a Mayavadi and a pure devotee. Text 35. O my mother, my devotees always see the smiling face of my form, with eyes like the rising morning sun. They like to see my various transcendental forms, which are all benevolent, and they also talk favorably with me. Purport. Mayavadis and atheists accept the forms of the deities in the temple of the Lord as idols. But devotees do not worship idols. They directly worship the personality of Godhead in His Archa incarnation. Archa refers to the form which we can worship in our present condition. Actually, in our present state, it is not possible to see God in the spiritual form, because our material eyes and senses cannot conceive of a spiritual form. We cannot even see the spiritual form of the individual soul. When a man dies, we cannot see how the spiritual form leaves the body. That is the defect of our material senses. In order to be seen by our material senses, the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts a favorable form, which is called Archa Vigraha. This Archa Vigraha, sometimes called the Archa incarnation, is not different from Him. Just as the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts various incarnations, He takes on forms made out of matter, clay, wood, metal, and jewels. There are many Shastra conjunctions which give instructions for carving forms of the Lord. These forms are not material. If God is all-pervading, then He is also in the material elements. There's no doubt about it. But the atheists think otherwise. Although they preach that everything is God, when they go to the temple and see the form of the Lord, they deny that He is God. Prabhupada used to laugh at this idea, and the Mayavadis, they don't go to the temple, and when they ask, and when asked why, they say, God is everywhere. And then Prabhupada asks, well, if God is everywhere, He's in the temple. Why can't you come to the temple? No, God is everywhere. It's just envy. It's just envy. God is everywhere except for His deity. It's crazy. According to their own theory, everything is God. Then why is the deity not God? Actually, they have no conception of God. The devotee's vision, however, is different. Their vision is smeared with the love of God. As soon as they see the Lord in His different forms, the devotees become saturated with love. They do not find any difference between the Lord and His form in the temple, as do the atheists. The smiling face of the deity in the temple is beheld by the devotees as transcendental and spiritual, and the decorations of the body of the Lord is very much appreciated by the devotees. It is the duty of the spiritual master to teach how to decorate the deity in the temple, how to cleanse the temple, and how to worship the deity. There are different procedures and rules and regulations which are followed in temples of Vishnu, and devotees go there and see the deity, the Vigraha, and spiritually enjoy the form, because all the deities are benevolent. The devotees express their minds before the deity, and in many instances, the deity also gives answers. But one must be a very elevated devotee in order to be able to speak with the Supreme Lord. Sometimes the Lord informs the devotee through dreams. These exchanges of feelings between the deity and the devotee are not understandable by atheists, but actually the devotee enjoys them. Kapila, understandable by atheists, Kapila Muni is explaining how the devotees see the decorated body and face of the deity, and how they speak with Him in devotional service. Gosh, it's so nice. Text 36. Upon seeing the charming forms of the Lord, smiling and attractive, and hearing His very pleasing words, the pure devotee almost loses all other consciousness. His senses are freed from all other engagements, and he becomes absorbed in devotional service. Thus, in spite of his unwillingness, he attains liberation without separate endeavor. Purport. There are three divisions of devotees: first class, second class, and third class. Even the third class devotees are liberated souls. It is explained in this verse that although they do not have knowledge, simply by seeing the beautiful decoration of the deity in the temple, the devotee is absorbed in thought of Him and loses all other consciousness. Simply by fixing oneself in Krishna consciousness, engaging the senses in the service of the Lord, one is imperceptibly liberated. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Simply by discharging uncontaminated devotional service as prescribed in the scriptures, one becomes equal to Brahman. In Bhagavad Gita it is said, Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. This means that the living entity in his original state is Brahman, because he is part and parcel of the Supreme Brahman. But simply because of his forgetfulness of his real nature, as an eternal servitor of the Lord, he is overwhelmed and captured by Maya. His forgetfulness of his real constitutional position is Maya. Otherwise, he is eternally Brahman. When one is trained to become conscious of his position, he understands that he is the servitor of the Lord. Brahman refers to a state of self-realization. Even the third-class devotee, one who is not advanced in knowledge of the absolute truth, but simply offers obeisances with great devotion, thinks of the Lord, sees the Lord in the temple, and brings forth flowers and fruits to offer to the deity, becomes imperceptibly liberated. Shadayan vitaha, With great devotion, the devotees offer worshipful respects and paraphernalia to the deity. The deities of Radha and Krishna, Lakshmi and Narayana, and Rama and Sita are very attractive to devotees, so much so that when they see the statue decorated in the temple of the Lord, they become fully absorbed in thought of the Lord. That is the state of liberation. In other words, it is confirmed herewith that even a third-class devotee is in the transcendental position, above those who are trying for liberation by speculation or by other methods. Even great impersonalists like Shukadeva Goswami and the four Kumaras were attracted by the beauty of the deities in the temple, by the decorations and by the aroma of tulsi offered to the Lord. And they become devotees. Even though they were in the liberated state, instead of remaining impersonalists, they were attracted by the beauty of the Lord and became devotees. Here the word vilas is very important. Vilas refers to the activities or pastimes of the Lord. It is a prescribed duty in temple worship that not only should one visit the temple to see the deity nicely decorated, but at the same time you should hear the recitation of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, or some similar literature which is regularly recited in the temple. It is the system in Vrindavan that in every temple there is recitation of the Shastras. Even third-class devotees who have no literary knowledge or no time to read Srimad-Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita get the opportunity to hear about the pastimes of the Lord. In this way their minds may remain always absorbed in the thought of the Lord, His form, His activities, and His transcendental nature. This state of Krishna consciousness is a liberated stage. Lord Chaitanya therefore recommended 5 important processes in the discharge of devotional service. 1. To chant the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 2. To associate with devotees and serve them as far as possible. 3. To hear Srimad-Bhagavatam. 4. To see the decorated temple and the deity. And if possible, 5. To live in a place like Vrindavan or Mathura. These 5 items alone can help a devotee achieve the highest perfectional stage. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita and here in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. That third-class devotees can also imperceptibly achieve liberation is accepted in all Vedic literatures. Text 37. Thus, because he is completely absorbed in thought of me, the devotee does not desire even the highest benediction obtainable in the upper planetary systems, including Satyaloka. He does not desire the 8 material perfections obtained from mystic yoga, nor does he desire to be elevated to the kingdom of God. Yet even without desiring them, the devotee enjoys, even in this life, all the offered benedictions. Purport. The vibhuti, or opulences, offered by Maya are of many varieties. We have experience of different varieties of material enjoyment, even on this planet. But if one is able to promote himself to higher planets like Chandraloka, the sun, or still higher, Maharloka, Janaloka, and Tapaloka, or even ultimately the highest planet, which is inhabited by Brahma and is called Satyaloka, there are immense possibilities for material enjoyment. For example, the duration of life on higher planets is far, far greater than on this planet. It is said that on the moon, the duration of life is such that our 6 months are equal to 1 day. We cannot even imagine the duration of life on the highest planet. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that Brahma's 12 hours are inconceivable even to our mathematicians. These are all descriptions of the external energy of the Lord, or Maya. Besides these, there are other opulences which the yogis can achieve by their mystic power. They are also material. A devotee does not aspire for all these material pleasures, although they are available to him simply by wishing. By the grace of the Lord, a devotee can achieve wonderful success simply by willing. But a real devotee does not like that. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was taught that one should not desire material opulence or material reputation, nor should one try to enjoy material beauty. One should simply aspire to be absorbed in the devotional service of the Lord, even if one does not get liberation, but has to continue the process of birth and death unlimitedly. Actually, however, to one who engages in Krishna consciousness, liberation is already guaranteed. Devotees enjoy all the benefits of the higher planets and the Vaikuntha planets also. It is especially mentioned here. Bhagavatim, Bhadram. In the Vaikuntha planets, everything is eternally peaceful. Yet a pure devotee does not even aspire to be promoted there. But still, he gets that advantage. He enjoys all the facilities of the material and spiritual worlds, even during the present lifespan. I'm going to stop here. We're at 7:30, and I only got 4 hours sleep last night, and I need to get to bed a decent hour and to recoup my energy because we're going to be flying day after tomorrow morning, and I have things to do tomorrow. So we're going to stop the reading, although it's ecstatic. It's hard to stop, but I have to stop. So let us have reflections. Any points that you've heard that stuck in your mind that you want to hear more about, or that you want to reflect, give us your realizations and reflections. Please be my guest. Dr. Matt has something to say.
I thought it was interesting in the purport that Prabhupada considered one who doesn't see the Lord in the form of the deity an atheist. So I just thought that was a interesting.
Yeah, that jogged my memory too, because the thing that really impressed me was we're always thinking of the persons who were just doing deity worship as neophytes, but here he says even the neophyte devotee in Bhakti Yoga is liberated. Of course, if from whatever position, if we commit offenses against other devotees, then that becomes in jeopardy, that status, liberated status. But if a person, when the person sees the devotee, the deity nicely decorated, and feels love in his heart, it means he's liberated. So without knowledge, and this is another really important point that reinforces what we're doing to try to hear the Bhagavatam every day, carefully, and in the association of other devotees, and to discuss and relish and churn the ocean of these topics. Without that knowledge, then the tendency to make a defense will be stronger. And that's the difference between the neophyte and the advanced devotee, the Madhyam Bhakta. The Madhyam Bhakta has knowledge of what he's doing, he knows why he's doing it, and therefore his tendency to be able to not argue exactly, but to give transcendental answers, both to his own mind, which is very important, because if we can't give the right answers to our mind when our mind starts to get uncontrolled, then we get in trouble. What to speak of preaching to non-devotees and try to convince them to become devotees. We need knowledge. But that knowledge also has another purpose, a more intimate purpose in relationship to our own development, and that is to keep us from making mistakes, such as offenses, and losing our spiritual verve, losing our spiritual enthusiasm to continue. Because we're in the material world, no matter who we are. Time is powerful, all powerful, more powerful even than Arjuna. What to speak of us? Not to mention us. Anyway, I was thinking of that in relationship to what you said. The devotee it's not like he's reading to get information, more information. He wants to know more about Krishna, and certainly that is a kind of information, but it's different because it's meant to get to know Krishna better. The difference between the impersonalists and the personalists, as we read, the impersonalists, they get information simply so they can merge into the effulgence of Krishna, or into Krishna, they think. And then that's it. The devotional service goes away. They stop serving. They're serving just for that purpose, just to liberate themselves by merging into the body of the Lord or into the effulgence of the Lord. Okay, I am going to take liberty tonight, and I'm going to stop early, because I really do need to take rest early. So thank you very much, everyone. If you're here, live, or if you are reading at your convenience at another time. By the way, we had guests today, and one of our guests was Pandava Prema from the Delhi, from Radha Parthasarthi Mandir in Delhi. And he didn't have a Facebook account, but he asked me what the name of the page was, where the recording is being made. So I told him, daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, and he was sitting there, and he just got his phone out, and he Googled daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, and then he got a Facebook message that said, log on to your account or to your email address. And so he logged onto the email address, and all of a sudden I heard myself speaking over in the side of the room, and he was watching and I said, well, maybe it's just that one. It was because it was last night. He was reading, he saw. I said, maybe it was just for last night. You just get one with your email again. And they said, no, Skype. So then he said, no. He said, and then he went and found another one, and they were all there. So you don't have to have an account. If you log on to that page with just your email account, you can be free from it's the same reason why I never did this for so long, because I didn't want to get a Facebook account, because I know how entangling it is, but I also know lately how dangerous it is. It's a portal for, getting people to know things about you don't want to know, such and such, so on and so forth. Okay, Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you very much. All glories to Kapila Dev's instructions to Devahuti. All glories to the process of pure devotional service, especially the last 5, associating with devotees, chanting the holy name, hearing the Srimad-Bhagavatam, worshipping the deities with love, and living in a holy place, especially Vrindavan, Govardhan. Chi Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Samaveda Bhakta Brinda ki jai. Thank you. See you tomorrow night. Hari Bo.